Teachers often get surprised with extra classes or sub-duty. Here are 10 no prep activities you can use in your classes. As the name implies, these games can be used with groups with no preparation needed. If you want more activities such as these, check out my book 100 No Prep Classroom Activities in the description below. Dictogloss. The teacher tells an interesting story to the students and they have to memorize it. You can read a story from a book or tell them an exciting experience from your own life. Next, place them in pairs or groups and let them retell the story using their own words. After that, you can break them up and make new groups and they have to retell the story in those groups. A good idea is to record yourself when you tell the story the first time. Then replay the original version at the end. This is a fun activity because students practice their listening skills and they learn how to substitute different words while keeping the meaning intact. As a follow-up, students can tell a story to a partner and that partner has to retell it to a new group. What's different? Split the class into 2 teams. Then line them up to face each other. Tell them to inspect the other team and make sure they notice all the details. Then one team turns around while the other team changes things about themselves. They can trade places, exchange jackets, untie their shoes, undo some buttons, switch their watches from one wrist to the other, whatever noticeable changes they can make. Once the other group turns around, they have to spot all the changes they can see. Count how many they've gotten right and then see how many they've missed. Then the teams switch. The team that noticed the most changes wins. Anagram. An anagram is a word or phrase that is formed by rearranging the letters of a word to construct a different word or phrase. Students have to find as many words as possible from the letters of a word or phrase you write on the board. Split the class into a few groups depending on the size. Each group picks a writer. Then write a long word or phrase on the board. Students have to make up new words using the letters of the word or phrase. Each writer takes a whiteboard marker to record the answers their team shouts out. Teams may not use the same words. The group with the most unique words at the end of the activity wins. For example, I love my teacher. Possible words: creatively, achiever, alchemy, Cheerio, army, cola, come, mayo. You can give extra points for longer words. Small talk. Start by writing some topics for conversation on the board. Sport, movies, weekend, travel, Portugal. These are only as an example to give students a place to start from. Then place 2 pairs of students into a group of 4. The first pair decides on a topic and the other pair has to discuss it with each other for 1 minute. The pair that picked the topic must make notes of the discussion in order to report back to the rest of class. You can change the amount of time depending on the level of your students. This is a great activity because you don't need to prepare anything and the learners pick the topics. This setup could be used with any number of students. A pair can decide topics for each other, or if you have an odd class, 3 students can take turns picking topics for one another. Things in common. First, place the students into pairs or small groups. Then, give them some time to discover interesting things they have in common with their partner or partners. They can talk about their hobbies, experiences, places they've been to, things they've done, things about their lives, their families, and so on. Students must find at least 3 interesting things they have in common. Once they are done, let them share their similarities with the class. This is a good activity because we should celebrate the things we have in common and not just focus on our differences. Countdown. Students close their eyes and count down from 20 to 1. But only one person at a time can call out the next number. So they can count 20, 19, 18, 17. But when 2 students say a number at the same time, they have to restart. The starting number can be equal to the number of students in class. Once they say a number, they are done and may open their eyes. Categories. Starting with the chosen letter, students have to think of words in different categories. Scattergories is a fun activity that can easily keep individual students occupied, but I prefer using it with pairs of students to improve teamwork and camaraderie. After placing learners in pairs, pick 5 to 10 categories and write them on the board. Each team copies the categories on a sheet of paper. Then pick a random letter. Students have to write a word for each category, starting with the letter. For example, the letter C. They have to think of words starting with the letter C for the given categories. Country, China, animal, cat, vegetable, cucumber. Only unique answers score points, challenging students to think outside the box. In my book, 100 No Prep Classroom Activities, you can find 60 different topics for categories. I placed it in the description below. Line up. Ask students to stand next to a wall. Then they have to rearrange themselves according to whatever rule you give them. Let them arrange themselves according to the following: height, shortest to tallest. Alphabetically according to their names, A to Z. According to their birthdays, their telephone numbers. Use anything you can think of for them to rearrange themselves. Playing games and doing fun activities in the classroom is a great way to keep your students engaged. 9. Expanding sentences. Write a simple sentence on the board. Then, one by one, ask students to add words, phrases, or clauses to the sentence so it gradually expands and becomes more complex. For example, Eric is a teacher. My brother Eric is a teacher. My younger brother Eric is a teacher. My younger brother Eric is a teacher in South Korea who loves sweets. My younger brother Eric is a science teacher in South Korea who loves sweets but lost all his teeth. Now that you've modeled the activity, place the students in groups to create their own sentences. You can give them a starter sentence or they can make their own and afterwards share their expansions. Who's the leader? This is a simple but fun game. To begin, pick a student in class to be the detective. Once the detective has left the room, the class selects another student to be the leader, which they have to copy. When the detective student comes back into class, he or she has to ask the class some questions to find out who the leader is. While he or she is asking questions and looking around, the class has to copy exactly what the leader is doing. If the leader crosses his legs, the rest of the class has to follow. If he raises his hands while the detective isn't looking, the class should follow. They secretly imitate the moves the leader makes. To confuse the detective, other students can fake making moves to hide the class leader. Want even more activities? Watch this video next.